Oh, here comes our scribe, Leo. Okay.
Welcome to Global Kinship, exploring the emerging noosphere, a monthly webinar sponsored by Creation Spirituality Communities. My name is Gail Ransom. I am joined by Bob Eisenberger, our tech specialist, and Penny Andrews, our networker and today's speaker, as a team of three that bring these webinars to you. 100 years ago, Pierre Desjardins and Vladimir Vernadsky observed the acceleration and complexification of human advancements and predicted it would carry us into a new age, a new epoch, a global consciousness that they named the noosphere, meaning sphere of the mind. Other names we might have heard before we heard the words noosphere was shift, the global brain, the planetary mind, oneness, global consciousness, the great turning, and new age. This new consciousness, this global consciousness and sharing of community and compassion and all the beautiful sides of humanity is not guaranteed. One reason we started this series was it needs to be intended. It needs to be named, intended, celebrated, explored in order to be alive in us and in order to move forward in what is already the collective unconscious of all humanity. So when we do this, we add into that, I believe. Especially now, I believe this moment is one moment of deconstruction. It's kind of like when you have big pebbles inside this little sand and you shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it. And then the pebbles that need not be there come up to the top, which is what we're doing right now. And then they can, be set aside so that we can move forward with a clear piece of material and to move ahead. So I see this as a time for us to articulate what we believe in, especially to continue to keep it alive in the collective unconscious, to offer our truth with compassion, and to heal the estrangements between countries and communities. Today, we are very blessed to be able to welcome back the wisdom of Penny Andrews to deepen our nature and our resolve. Welcome, Penny, and thank you, Bob, for giving us an introduction to the tech side of this program.
Certainly, thank you. As most of you are regulars will know, sorry, I'm having trouble finding myself to get myself on screen here. I saw awful lot of familiar names coming in today, which is wonderful. So just a gentle reminder, we ask you to keep yourself muted until and unless it's time for you to ask a question or make a comment. And at that time, the simple thing to do is go find your Zoom toolbar, find the reactions button, and under there look for the words raise hand, and that will put you at the top of the queue and we'll get to everybody in sequence. Thanks.
Oh, welcome. I see a lot of friends out there. And for those that are relatively new, welcome as well. Friends all. This is a big day today because we're going to say goodbye to one of us as a regular contributor. Gail is going to be stepping back after 8 years of doing this with the team of either John Robinson or Bob Eisenberger and myself. Gail's glue that sent out the monthly invitations regularly through geographic move, through health crises, through shifts in family status, some great, some challenging. She has steadfastly gotten us together to be here and do this. And, what do you say to that? That's just the gift of what she brings. And we have all been lucky to be with her. I'd like to pass this to John, who was part of our original team, to say a few words and then share a poem as we move on in the afternoon.
Well, good. So I have some wonderful recollections of Gail from our Creation in Crisis series that I can't believe was 6 years ago or thereabouts. And I had the distinct honor of interviewing her for our Elder interview series. That interview is still online, and it is a rich and lovely and intimate window, really, into her heart and soul and professional life. I would recommend anybody wanting to know Gail even better that is find that interview and see all she's done for creation spirituality. So I remember Gail as energetic. That's an understatement. Organized and focused in our work. She understands creation spirituality. She loves the big questions. She was just a lot of fun to work with. But what especially stands out to me personally is her immense musical aptitude as a singer, composer, musician, writer of sacred chants. Her voice, as I think you all know, is angelic. It is truly angelic. And her understanding of music theory and artistry just blows me away. And she's creative in so many other ways. I sometimes wondered if there was anything she couldn't do. And now she's being a great, wonderful grandmother. So lastly, I would say that Gail is someone with a big and tender heart linked to a very busy brain that leads to productivity wherever she is. And she was a great companion to work with and work on the common good. And I really look forward to seeing what she's going to do next. I hope she tells us. Do you want me to read the poem, or were we doing?
Yeah, if you feel like it.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd love to. So what I've been kind of steeped deeply in mystical poetry because just I quit everything I was doing those few years ago, and I just needed to go into the ground of my own being, and so I started writing poetry, and it started writing me, and it's been sort of nonstop since. But so this is a poem. I think it's sort of what it means to be a creation spirituality mystic, how you move into that mystical space. So listen deeply and let the poem transform your consciousness. It's called Stepping into the Mystery. Stop thinking. Stand very still. Breathe slowly. Become intensely awake and aware of your surroundings, especially the way light and shadow constantly transform the surfaces of the world. Examine every little thing. And now focus consciousness back on itself and feel God breathing you, becoming creation. Whisper your secret name for God, and love rushes up from within, ending all confusion about why you're here. Enter heaven here on earth. Stay a while. Wherever you are, bathe in the enchanting mystery of God's conscious being. And I will add one little short one because I think it also summarizes everything that I think is mystical activism. It's called perception as solution. Nothing matters more than the perceptual act of divinizing every single thing through mystical seeing. Say that again. Nothing matters more than the perceptual act of divinizing every single thing through mystical seeing. We will no longer harm creation, ignore suffering, or start wars when everything, including us, is directly experienced as God.
Mm.
Thank you, John. That was beautiful.
My
Wow.
pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bob, would you like to share a few words?
Ah, sure. Sorry, just letting a few more folks in. Um, yep, here I come. So, um, I'm happy to finally know whose footsteps I follow in. John and I just met. Um, uh, I think I joined this circle, it must be over 2 years ago now, when a mutual friend of Gail's and Penny's and mine, Carol Kilby, I believe is with us today. Gail and Penny were apparently looking for some assistance in this arena, and Carol connected us, and it's been an amazing ride ever since. And have learned so much from both of these fine women, but in particular Gail today. I remember her passion for creation spirituality and all that that entails, including exploring many ways to live that day to day, to express it in our lives, to find it in our lives, and to help spread that forward. One of the many ways that that takes shape, of course, as John has alluded to, Gail's passion and skills for music. It's such a delight to see creativity spring forth from Gail's pen and lips, and to hear her marvelous voice in service to the work that we are all pursuing. And I was searching for a way to comment on another piece, and I'm going to pick up on a phrase that John used because it suits so well. That Gail loves the big questions. She's not afraid to ask the what if and why and how can we. And that is the way in which this exercise, this monthly work that we do, has moved forward, has evolved, has become more of what we all hope it will be as we move with the times and grow with the times. And so it's been not only an inspiration. No, what I mean to say is it has been such an inspiration to be working with Gail. We're really going to miss you, Gail, on this on the monthly work. But we know how to find you, and we will be in touch, and hopefully have you back occasionally as you're moved. And thank you for the gift of bringing me into this particular exercise and for getting to know you as I have over the past couple of years. It's been a real gift. Thanks.
Gail, would you like to say a few words when you unmute yourself?
I can, yeah. Well, Bob, you were very kind about saying how it is that you came onto this enterprise, because it really was because I was getting overwhelmed with uh, the technology, and I thought, and Carol, for goodness sake, said, "Oh, I know somebody's really good with that." And boy, we just wanted somebody who knew how to press the buttons, but we got you instead, and you're just been wonderful to work with. Your calmness, your quietude, and good nature, always good natured. So it's been my pleasure to work with you, and I've learned a few things.
You've learned a lot.
I learned a lot, and I gave a lot away. So thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you, we'll cut back to this part of the au revoir at the end of our session when Marianne Wamhoff joins us as she talks about what's ahead, because there will be a shift, but hopefully it'll be as enticing, if not more. Without further ado, I'm going to start the talk that is one of those talks that I feel led to say. And as we settle into listening and hearing from multiple wisdom teachers, I want to remind us of our place in time. We're in the ending years, eons of the Cenozoic era. The next era is beginning. Some call it the Anthropocene because what we're grappling with is human impact on our beloved planet. We're facing a sixth mass extinction, poverty, hunger, loss of home, loss of habitat. We're here at this juncture for many reasons. Joanna Macy would remind us that it's a great privilege to be here during this time, at the ending and at what is beginning. We were born into two wounds that we couldn't have even known at the time. One is that our ancestors, our deep ancestors, knew we were connected to everything. And something abruptly and evolution-wise came about that cut us off from that. And that is an invisible wound that we don't even realize we carry. And it takes us back to times of Reagan when he talked about cocooning, where we'd all go into our houses and we'd be self-sufficient, which is completely opposite the way living systems operate. The other wound, and this one's new for me to process, but it stands true as I butt up against it, is science has failed us. And that comes from Brian Swim. And as I reflect on his story in Cosmogenesis, his life is a pivot on that. There came a point where he realized he was teaching students who were going to go out into corporate worlds and create things that would help destroy Earth as we know her. And so I invite you to sit with that. Science has only awakened in the last 100 years to connection on any kind of profound level. So let me share these words from Matthew Fox this past week. We have to change our ways. We have to want to find the hidden parts of ourselves. Otherwise, how will we change? How will our species change? How will our species survive if we don't become hunter-gatherers for the best in ourselves? It is from this depth that our creativity will come alive and we will find ways to create alternative energies and more participatory politics and more fair economics and more ways to grow and distribute food and alternatives to war and more ways to celebrate life. Our depths are even hidden from ourselves, but they are there. We all carry depths within us. We need to remove the veils in order to uncover what is in us. And he leaves us with the question, how do we do that? Bob, can you put on slide 1? I sat down last night and just started making a list of how do we deepen? And I came up with these, and I want to share them in some comments. The first one is move at the pace of guidance. And that means trust your intuition. Trust that moment of knowing that that is the path forward. Practice wonder. I want to share two words from the Asian world that they have words for that we lack. The first one is yugen, and that means what you feel when something touches you deeply, but in a way that's hard to put into words, like the quiet awe of a starlit sky or the melancholic beauty of a fleeting moment. The other one is a new word, yu zhou, new to me. And this is a Chinese word that is the concept of the cosmos as the union of space and time, evoking intellectual wonder and a sense of the vastness of existence itself. Those cultures and these words offer us a path to deepen. Perhaps in your daily practice, whatever it be, you remember the vastness and how one in all the numbers that are possible, this place we are in time on this planet like no other came to be. Honor your pain. I thought I'd share a poem rather than trying to give words. How not to abdicate. When decisions complicate, try to go below them, where the job is simply to go on breathing. If in pain, the task is to remove what is paining you. If you can't, the work must go the other way, till you soften and enlarge like water around whatever strikes it. If someone presses left or right, take an unmarked way. When the egoists whittle at everything larger than themselves, be with the thing they can't talk of. When nothing seems to matter, find early light and stand like a tree in the wind. Stay this way long after your arms tire. Stay this way until you are unsure what matter even means. Pretend you have roots and be still, despite the urge to run, and things that are alive will find you. Mark Nepo goes on to say, my soul tells me we were all broken from the same nameless heart, and everything wakes with a piece of the original heart aching its way into blossom. This is why we know each other below our strangeness, why when we fail or fall, we lift each other, or when in pain, we hold each other, why sudden with joy, we dance together. Life is the many pieces of that great heart loving itself back together. That speaks to that wound that author David Hinton talks about, where as Neolithic peoples, everything depended on connection, knowing the cycles of the prey, knowing the cycles of the plants, knowing not to take too much so that more would be there next year and for the 7 generations yet to come. That knowing that we are kin and losing that knowledge has been a big wound. David Hinton says this: ancient Greek philosophy conjured a transcendental realm of pure idea that seemed more real and true than the empirical world around us. Because pure idea is changeless and therefore reliable, while wild earth is constantly changing and therefore unreliable. So this is where one of the most revealing things the Capra course taught me was that it wasn't until the 30s when systems theory came about, and then when computers were developed, that science could look at nonlinear things that happen, the unstable earth. They could look at the way the earth works. And that is, in the span of 13.8 billion years, 100 years is nothing. And we'd already begun to disconnect. So it's important to remember that that wound, the wound of disconnection, is false. It's false on every level. It's a human construct. Put another way, our collective memory is filtered through a fine mesh of trauma, media fog, misinformation, and fear. We don't agree on what has happened, and this disagreement fuels our suffering. When we compost, we take what appears to be waste, rotting leaves, broken stems, empty husks, and give it the conditions it needs to transform. It looks like a big mess, but with time and space, the chaos resolves into order, and the waste becomes something usable. Transforming our past and our wounds takes humility and asks us to look deeply into our pain and our misunderstanding. It asks us to touch the truth of impermanence. Nothing stays the same and everything is connected. And to recognize our place in the broader web of life. We don't have to do it alone. In fact, composting is a process of communion. So that leads us to connection. It is a time to connect in new ways, in deeper ways. Create islands of coherence, or islands of sanity, as Meg Wheatley calls us to do. In sociology, and I like this term, it's a new term, also from the Capra course, it's communities of practice. And the way that term is described in his course is that humans design the workplace, the work norms, the work predictions, but it's over in the communities of practice, the non-linear systems where friends are made, altercations can happen. It's in the human realm that is unpredictable where the magic happens. And he uses that word. Fritjof Capra, author of Tao of Physics and many other things, has created this. And this is, I'm, it's a book that you can read, or it's a course you can take, and it's wonderfully insightful on what happens when things get on the ground on Earth. So the next idea that occurred to me was use your voice wisely. We are a very verbal society, and much of it could be cult. Get to know and befriend your vagus nerve, and that's VAGUS. Really important. Celebrate your aliveness. Express yourself as the universe through your creativity, knowing that everything is a creative act. And we'll get to it, but a very important slice of this is creativity and regeneration are the same thing. So, it's about engaging your aliveness wherever it is leading you, or you are being led to. Okay, Bob, on the slide. I ran across this was when I was putting this together. I didn't attribute it to anyone, but every time we take a breath, we become the universe. The very moment of creation is contained in us and passes on to rocks and trees, animals and fish. The old ones say the essence of life is in water and wind, earth and breath, fire and bone, but most of all in breath, our first connection to the elk, the hawk, the bear, and the buffalo. Without breath, no connection. Without connection, no creation. Without creation, no breath. This is the sacred circle of life unbroken. So, when I began taking this Capra course, which is like a 12-week lecture series with people all over the world, I think 8,000 people may have been trained in it. I was very excited to be able to look at everything that I knew about the universe story and see how it played out in Capra's view of the systems of life. And it was terribly exciting every time something that I'd heard Brian Swim say or Matt Fox say show up in his course, because he's an earth guy, he's a Gaia guy. And here's one of his quotes. When we look at the world around us, we find that we are not thrown into random events, into chaos, but rather that we are part of a great order, a grand symphony of life. Every molecule in our body was once part of a different body, living or non-living, and will be a part of a different body in the future. And in this way, our body will not die, but will live on, because life itself lives on. Moreover, we share not only the basic molecules of life, but also the basic patterns of organization of life with all the living world. Indeed, we are intimately interwoven with the whole fabric of life. We belong to the universe, and this experience of belonging can make our lives profoundly meaningful. And this is where modern science and spirituality meet. So, the first thing that really got me about the Capricorn was this idea that it wasn't that scientists were trying and would always feel like they had the wrong theory when their math didn't work or their experiments came out differently, when they didn't allow for non-linear systems. Can you imagine? I mean, today we can't imagine it because it's so woven into our lives. But can you imagine always trying to expect things to be cause and effect, mechanical, and it just doesn't work that way. It's the interconnected weaving of all that is that makes what is. So that just right there took me off into a whole mindset that it's 100 years that we've had this idea of nonlinear systems in the Western culture. Indigenous people have accounted for it because that's how they survived. They knew things could be unpredictable or have different things happen in a year or in a cycle. It was woven in. But we Westerners always had this ideal that we were aiming for. And how frustrating that must have been for so many scientists. But it was, and perhaps it was that moment where the Catholic Church and science went different ways. Maybe if they'd stayed together, there would have been a softening and we would have gotten into nonlinear systems a lot quicker. But here we are. So to segue into what Fritjof and his principles of life say, I want to read this because it kind of sets the groundwork, and it's where ecologists from all disciplines are starting to land. And there's a coherence in science now of relationality. If you look at the work of Suzanne Simard, Paul Stamets, Robin Wall Kimmerer, they are all relational, and they are looking at nonlinear systems, and these deeper truths are emerging that we can draw from as we need to deepen, because it's in the flow of the way life is. Earth is not a planet that sustains us and life. Earth is a planet created and sustained by life. Let me pause here to just share that Brian Swim gave me just a wonderful insight 2 weeks ago, where he was talking about the universe is very good at making rocky planets. And then letting the planets go on to create their destiny with their own creative juices. So this is what our Earth chose to do. Our planet is habitable because the myriad living entities embedded in its lands and oceans continuously maintain and improve its vitality, viability, and evolutionary capability. What distinguishes the survivors from the fossils is a pattern that is as old as life itself. The species that prevail after millions of years of change, disruption, and upheaval are those that leave the planet better off than before. Scientific evidence shows that plankton create clouds, mushrooms make rain, termites green the desert, and whales cool the climate. Recent discoveries show that life does not live on Earth, it shapes Earth in every way, from minerals to mountains, rain to rivers, from microsphere to atmosphere. Darwin wrote on the wonder of coral and how these tiny creatures build gigantic underwater structures. Understanding how life creates a livable Earth radically alters our worldview. It means that the material world does not simply shape the conditions of the living world. The living world also actively shapes the material world in ways that enhance vibrancy and livability. Fungi need water to live and reproduce, so they invest in rainmaking. Termites need biomass for survival, so they invest in greenery making. Whales are marine mammals that need oxygen to breathe, so they invest in oxygen making. Trees and fungi need healthy soils to grow and procreate, so they invest in soil making. What is more, trees cannot run when conditions turn bad, so trees also invest in weather making, ensuring that the weather patterns continue to be life-supporting. This pattern is fundamental to how life works. Earth became increasingly friendly to life because of these life-supporting, wealth-generating, and world-making abilities that shape planetary processes. Biodiversity is absolutely vital for life. And what is it that we humans can bring to increasing life's vitality? What the bigger body on Earth in which we humans are nested is asking us from right now is to embrace interdependency, to realize we have a role to play in the maintenance and evolution of the bigger wholes we are part of. After all, ancient roots of the word human refer to both earth and soil, indicating we are earthlings. We are far from the land and from the soil. We are far from the land and soil. Teachings from the indigenous wisdom keepers that have been shared since time immemorial. We need to remember who we are and what our value-adding role is will be pivotal. We need to begin to realize on such a fundamental level that we are the earth regenerating herself. Bob, the second slide, please. So Fritjof Capra and Luisi distilled 4 principles. Principle 1, life organizes itself in networks. Now, when we study the universe story, we'll talk about holons, but it's the same idea that networks of connection are everywhere and in everything. And again, if you look at the role of science and how they would pull things and extract them and watch them independent of their normal environment, how could a result be one that fuels this sense of connection? Because if you're in a silo, you can't see the sun. So science has brought us much, but ultimately it's time to reinvent science as well, and even our understanding of it. Because if you're like me, I took so much of it just for granted. So with this life organizing principle, it invites us to see the sacred interconnectedness of all things. Life is organized in networks, beautiful, dynamic patterns we find everywhere, from cells to ecosystems, and even in our communities. These networks are not linear or rigid. They are self-organizing and guided by their own inner wisdom, while also depending on the energy and nourishment of their environment. This understanding reminds us that life is not a machine, but a web of relationships. The second principle is life is inherently regenerative. In nature, from the turning of the seasons to the smallest molecular networks, life renews itself, balancing stability with continual transformation. This regenerative process, sustained by the flow of energy and connection, is not just biological, it's also social. As our shared communications build and renew the cultures and values that bind us together. The third principle is life is inherently creative. As Brian Swim would say, the universe is 100% generative. He used to say 99.9% creative, and he's modified it to say 100% generative. Through feedback loops, living systems can adapt, learn, and even transform into entirely new forms at moments of instability. As part of this creative web, each of us carries the spark of life's creativity. Not just artists and visionaries, but simply as living beings participating in this ever unfolding dance of creation. Principle 4. Life is inherently intelligent. This intelligence isn't it's not focused on human thought, but is woven into every fabric of life itself. Evident in how all living beings, plants, animals, bacteria, interact with their environments, adapt, and thrive. In this wisdom of life, we find a call to center our communities, technologies, and economies around the flourishing of life itself, nurturing a deeper wisdom for how we should live together on Earth. Okay, Bob, that slide can go down. I'm gonna pause right now. Is anyone having a question or a comment at this moment before we go on to what AI says human wisdom might bring about? So just to review, it's a little bit of the Capra and then the original wounding.
If you have a question or comment, simply go to your reactions button and the raise hand um, icon, and we'll know that you're in line.
Okay, if not, slide 3. So this is the next realm of what will fuel our thinking. And these are not bad ideas. Number 1, prioritize universal education, critical thinking, and systems thinking. Number 2, promote intelligence, emotional, and empathy. 3, integrate science, art, and spirituality as partners. Number 4, promote collaborative leadership models. Number 5, support global environmental stewardship. Number 6, address economic inequality, redesign economic systems to prioritize well-being and sustainability. 7, leverage technology responsibly. 8, encourage open dialogue and media literacy. 9, redefine success, value well-being over materialism. And 10, cultivate inner transformation and mindfulness practices. Okay, thanks, Bob. So some of this seems ironic to be talking about at this moment in American time, because it feels like things are very unstable. And they are. However, as I read somewhere in there, that time of instability is when magic can happen. And those of us that were part of Brian Swim's autocosmogenesis class heard a lot about being led to our destiny. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of you here have, for some decades now, had this intuition that things were off and we were headed into strange territory. So you've been developing tools all along to cope and to flourish. In Joanna Macy's work, the work that reconnects, and a lovely thing is happening with this Capra course. The work that reconnects folks are bringing bringing facilitators of that work to this Capra course to give us more grounding as as things get more serious and more response is needed. And that is, you know, that interconnected dance that's beginning to happen. Much of what I said today is you can see it in pockets all over with the leading edge thinkers. There's this idea that, well, the noosphere people say we need to create a new human. Well, recently I ran across a graphic of how many humans there have been since we came from the base of our family tree. And there are jaunts all over. And this is one of those times perhaps that another jaunt is forming. But the thing we have to relearn, and it's perhaps more true for me because I'm not a group person, but it's our strength, our creativity, our ability to regenerate. It comes from connection. Now, it can come from connection outside. It can come from connection with your partner. It can come from the juices that flow when you bring this group together with this group. Terry Tempest Williams she talked about she would just invite random groups, not random groups, random individuals together to her house on a Friday night to make connection and see what could happen. And one of my learnings from something like that was when I called non-traditional professions at the hospital together at our University of Wisconsin hospital. Integrative medicine, art people, health psychology people. When we sat down, we didn't have an agenda, but we began to talk about what we noticed was missing, what we wanted to see. The last project they did was a rather hefty dollar bill project, but it created a garden outside for patients to go be in sunlight or to be around plants. And that couldn't have happened if a random group of people hadn't sat together more than once and just let what wanted to happen happen. I used to say, and actually my colleague may be on the in the audience here, but we were like Jerry Seinfeld, who started his TV show without a reason. And from it, the Seinfeld show emerged. That is the way life works. And again, with the Capra course, and this section was so revealing. It's the one on organizations. There's what employers want to happen and need to happen. And then there's this non-linear thing that happens just because it happens, because life's involved. So it's, and how much energy and how much great ideas, how many great ideas have we lost because that wasn't honored the way it needed to be or given space and ear. I'm winding down what I have prepared, but recently ran across this Maya Angelou piece, and it's pretty strong. And it kind of says what we have to do. But I want to do this first. The last thing Fritjof Capra says in his class is a quote from Václav Havel. And you may remember him. He was imprisoned for a time in Czechoslovakia. But here's his definition of hope. The kind of hope that I often think about, I understand above all as a state of mind, not a state of the world. Either we have hope in us or we don't. It is a dimension of the soul, and it's not essentially dependent on some particular observation of the world or estimate of the situation. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. Oh, gives me goosebumps. All right. So back to Maya Angelou. Continue. Even the stars look lonesome. Into a world which needed you, my wish for you is that you continue. Continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart. Continue in a society dark with cruelty to let the people hear the grandeur of God in the peals of your laughter. Continue to let your eloquence elevate the people to heights they had only imagined. Continue. Continue to remind the people that each is as good as the other, and that no one is beneath nor above you. Continue to remember your own young years and look with favor upon the lost and the least and the lonely. Continue to put the mantle of your protection around the bodies of the young and defenseless. Continue to take the hand of the despised and diseased and walk proudly with them in the high street. Some might see you and be encouraged to do likewise. Continue to plant a public kiss of concern on the cheek of the sick and the aged and infirm, and count that as a natural action to be expected. Continue to let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer, and let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Continue to ignore no vision which comes to enlarge your range and increase your spirit. Continue to dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing. Continue to float happily in the sea of infinite substance which set aside riches for you before you had a name. Continue, and by doing so, you and your work will be able to continue eternally. All right. Well, so thank you. And this is a time for what's been bubbled up or questions or any of that.
Gail has her hand up.
So, well, I thank you, Penny. That was, as usual, wonderful. And the combining of so many traditions. Am I? Yeah, I am on. Okay. The combining of so many traditions of current traditions of thought fields is encouraging just because that is happening. I mean, you articulated what's happening, and that's encouraging. And and the other thing that I want to thank you for is bringing it through this, being, I think this way, the nonlinear way that things happen. I hadn't really heard that kind of lifted up, and I don't know if any other people are with me in thinking about experiences they've had, like I've had, where that is what puts the blue on the rose, or makes something happen, or makes something you didn't expect to have happen, while we're going about with all the organizational start. And it makes me want to just kind of relax a little bit and keep my mind open and for allowing space for that to happen, because it's usually really wonderful when it does. But usually it's been like a surprise. Oh, wasn't that nice? Everybody's together. And this instead is like really one of the pillars of how the universe lives its life through us. And so I thank you for that.
Thank you, Gail. Carol Kilby. Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol. I just muted you. I didn't mean to.
I won't take that personally, Bob.
Good.
Um, uh, Thank you, Penny. What a lot of harvesting you have done. The language is interesting. The language of nonlinear. I wonder if in some worlds it might mean the same as mystical. It seems to contradict the whole my whole perception of science as something we observe. And so, I'm going to grab onto this new universe story because it's been observed, and say, yes, that explains my mystical experiences and mystical language. So, so this language of nonlinear. It comes together with the word systems. How bizarre is that? Um, so, and consciousness. That's my statement. And my question goes back to something that you said much earlier when you were mentioning how the body continues on. And so I had asked a question about, is there anything in Capra's material that talks about consciousness living on?
Well, that's that piece of regeneration. That's what he names regeneration. And one of the last chapters that he addresses is waste is food. Now, so he doesn't do it metaphorically per se, but it's like everything folds into everything else over time. And so it's extremely critical, that regeneration. And when Gail and I were looking for a title, I thought, well, what about Via Creativa? Because again, that even how things regenerate is somewhat nonlinear. Um, you know, if you remember the Sarmit's teachings in physics about an electron by itself will stay dormant for 1 billion years or millions of years, but anytime it gets near something, something amazing, oh, it's hydrogen, I think, something amazing happens, but it's different all the time. So it lives on, but he doesn't he doesn't go out of his way beyond the science model for that. You know, I mean, he's an Eastern tradition practitioner, but I would be surprised if he would think about something like incarnation, other than everything is reincarnating all the time.
I think a word that's just floating, I'm not trying to make a connection here other than regeneration and transformation, and suddenly we're talking about a new phylum called the noosphere. So how does, did you find connections with that?
In the section on organizations, he gets very explicit about how people connect and how that in that moment, and he literally calls that magic. In those non-linear systems, he calls that magic. And so that's where he would address that. He, in a later chapter, he looks at food and a couple of other domains, and then he will create a cycle where, again, nothing, if we really get down to living life in honor of and paying attention to living systems, there is no waste. Waste is always somebody's food. And so you build systems that way. And that's how Gaia's creativity came about. Now, this might be a good time to say this as well, that somewhere along the way, I listened to someone who was well credentialed, and she said, I'm so pleased to say that there are 3 dimensions that we study today, but scientists have determined that there are at least 10 dimensions. So 7 dimensions have gone, we don't know. They're there, but they're not for us to know at this moment. And that may be where you're going with this. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions or comments, we had hoped for our Creation Spirituality Community's chair, but our president, to be here to send Gail off her way. And she was also going to talk about, well, what's ahead. So I'm going to use this time to talk a little bit about what's ahead for Global Kinship. And we did touch on all things are impermanent. So Global Kinship as we know it is folding into something new. And it's going to be called First Thursdays. So the next Global Kinship will be January 9th, which isn't too different. And it's the second Thursday because of the holiday. But the next month, there's a new offering. And in February, the first Thursday at the same time, and actually on the same Zoom account, will be Global Dreaming, offered by Robin. I'm sorry, I've blanked her last name. She is
Hubbard.
Hubbard, thank you. She's a gifted yoga teacher and dream worker, studied with Jeremy Taylor back in the day, and she will be doing an offering during this 90-minute segment on dreams. And stay tuned. We'll see what that unfolds. Then in March, Cosmic Vespers will be back during this time slot. And so we're breaking up essentially 3 offerings into quarterly givings. And hopefully that dispenses the efforting, and irreplaceable Gail cannot be replaced. So we're doing it different. And isn't that enough? We are adapting.
Penny, would
And
you like me to put the slide of the dates up?
yeah, why don't you, just to give a visual.
And it's worth pointing out that this has created there we go, a new quarterly pattern where the first month of the quarter will be Global Kinship, and the second month, Global Dreaming, or an alternative you'll see in the second quarter there in May. And the third month of the quarter will be Cosmic Vespers. The only oddity in the pattern is, as Penny has pointed out, in January, because of the holidays, we moved Kinship to the second Thursday. But other than that, it's the first Thursday throughout the year. And you'll see this pattern, and hopefully it'll be an easy thing for everyone to access in the name of sustainability and broadening the umbrella of creation spirituality communities.
Yes, and May 1st, you note, is a labyrinth walk, and Marianne Wamhoff herself offers that, and she's a wonderful labyrinth leader. So all worth checking out, and just part of creation spirituality community's vision of becoming a community of learners and dreamers. I think our subtitle for this is Dream, Pray, Act. And we hope it to spread what Matthew Fox initiated in pulling together his iteration of creation spirituality, to all the people that have come along and found something to identify with. And we've got so many talented folks who have offerings, and please, this is an invitation. If you have something you've been wanting to share, it may not fit in the first Thursdays, but they're looking at regularly offering artist meditations and electives. So dream in that regard, if you'd ever seen yourself teaching. It's been a great, it's been a wonderful addition to my life to be able to do this. And I would imagine Gail might say the same thing.
Right.
Gail?
Oh, yes, definitely been so rich. It's been my, my fence post every, making it every month and doing this work together. Yeah. And yes, it's been, yeah. Can I talk now, or am I supposed to wait some more?
No. Any other last comments before we begin to wrap it up? Okay.
Let's see. Okay.
Okay. Well, this is pretty weird. Wow. But first, of course, we had not generated our pattern yet. So I responded to Bob, but I didn't respond to John because we hadn't set up that pattern yet. So I'm going to go back and thank Bob. Sorry, I do thank Bob. I can never thank you enough because I was, needed that help. And what we got was a wonderful company. But John Robinson, to you, I say, Oh, it was hard the first times you left because you just kind of like sparkle like the stars. I have to say, your energy is so special. When you interviewed, you had this that honest fascination and joy of being able to talk with this person. And so I was, of course, very lucky to have you interview me. But you brought such a presence, and yet you came to a point where you said, "I need to stop." And fortunately, you also insisted that you would not even come at the beginning when we first built this off of your your work in elder spirituality that you did at the 2016 uh, Creation Spirituality Gathering in Berkeley, California. And I thought it was so powerful. And you know, we all got there at 6:30 in the morning to learn from you. Was so I thought we should continue it. And Matt, that was a whole about generations. And Matt wanted to continue the work on generations. So I called you and you said, sure, I'm interested in that as long as Penny Andrews comes along. I thought, well, who is this Penny Andrews? It's so special, you know, that I could hear it in your voice, and I have found that out. That Penny, you know, we've been a couple of times. I felt like we were like, you know, sisters doing this work together. It's been really close and good support, supportive work. You astound me with your thoughts and your your networking, which has just really been a very important part of all of this. So don't worry about it. You know, Penny's networking, things are going to be just fine, and you're going to have wonderful people here and in different iterations of global kinship. Um, so hard to say what words to say about Penny, but because I just feel that we've been going through this together as on the road together, and I don't think I know how much I'm going to miss that. I will really miss it. So thank you, Penny, for saying yes to John's invitation. And you all, I want to thank you all for coming and supporting and being part of this, kind of catching what it is we were trying to do. And what I can say is, yes, it has been 8 years of writing those invitations to you. I mean, seriously, I moved, you know, I had surgery, I did all these things and you know, still got them out. And so I was dedicated to it. But now it's like Brian Swim talked about in his course on autocosmology. You know, the universe calls us to change and to do things. And that's, of course, how things regenerate, or Penny's talking about regenerating. That's how things regenerate. You have to make a little space, somebody else comes into the space, something new happens, and then I do something new too, which is what I feel called to do in a way that I cannot say no. I have been called by the universe to go slow, kind of take some time back, kind of like what John did, and take my time back, and I'm doing writing. And I'm going to put it in right now. I'm going to put it in the chat. Here is I sent it to you also on the last message I sent you, but here, let's see if I got this. Okay, this way. This is my blog post, but I don't like the word blog, so I'm using online journal is my word. It's because I don't like the word blog for something you really care about. And so it's just an inner imperative, and it's been kind of in there all the long time. I say, oh, I want to write, I want to write, I want to write. And now it's just like clear. This is what I must do right now. And I honor that, and I am grateful to have the universe take enough interest in me to, you know, call me to something new and call me to something that it needs from me. That's a great honor. And I guess I say that just so in case you get one of those too. I hope you follow it. That's something that those nudges, but this is more like somebody took me by the collar and said, stop. And so I'm following it with a sense of with a sense of great we got Leo's just coming in with a sense of great gratitude and just think of 8 years. My goodness, that was before COVID. That was before, you know, Trump. That was before so much. And look where we are now. Really cool things are happening. And And as Penny pointed out, these connections that we're making, they're coming together despite the turmoil that we have, the political turmoil that we have. It's still coming together. It's still coming together. So I hope you all come back in January and participate in the next gathering. And I may be, hopefully I can be there too and just be a participant. That'd be nice for me.
Oh,
So
Gail.
yeah,
Au revoir till we meet again.
yeah.
And we are blessed with Gail chanting us out today.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you everyone for celebrating Gail with us and for being here. Most of you have been here before, so thank you. Thank you for being part of our living system.
Yeah. So I think hopefully Bob will put up a slide that has this words to the song on it. And this is one of my famous songs that people seem to really like the most. It was written for it at Labyrinth Walk. And so I put the words here. You can sing along with me if you like. But put yourself on mute because the timing doesn't work. But down at the bottom, there's another one. There's a word that said optional counter tune. So you may not want to keep trying to figure out what the melody is and follow me along. You may want to just go step by step, step by step, and just continue that so that you're participating with me and we're making some kind of harmony or some kind of music together. But it won't you can just kind of sink into it if you'd like to. It's called a drone, so we'll do that. And I'll sing it 4 times. Step by step, step by step, step by step, step by step. Step by step and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step and round, carry me to holy ground. Center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found. Step by step and round, carry me to holy ground. The center is calling, earth still revolving, something lost and something found, something lost and something found.
Thank you, John, for coming today.
Yeah, nice to see you, John. Thank
Jean,
you, Bob, for your
Cedar,
support.
Thank you for your poetry, John.
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you for that closing chant, Gail. I love the way your voice lifts us and carries us.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, all right, Mazel tov, Gail.
All right, yes, go be the cosmos. Just go do it, and with joy. Thank you.
Love you.